Everyone. This is the Recycled Water Committee meeting of the Monterey One Water Board of Directors. It is March 14th at 3 p.m. And I'm going to call this meeting to order. And I'll ask for a roll call.
Veranda.
Here.
Castroville. Marina Coast.
Here.
Monterey. Pacific Grove.
Here. We have 3 directors present at the committee meeting. We can therefore move forward. We'll move on to item 3. Are there any additions to the agenda, Mr. Shuta?
No additions. There is a reordering, I think you're aware of, but no additions.
Okay, thank you. And I will go to item 4, approval of the agenda. There is one reordering. We would like to have item 11 heard before item 10. Other than that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No opposition. Passes unanimously. We'll move on to general public comment. Anyone wishing to address the committee on matters not appearing on the agenda today may do so now. Do we have a audience full of staff, so I don't think we're going to get any public comment there. Do we have anyone online that would like to speak general public comment?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, we'll close public comment. We'll move on to item 6, approval of the RWC minutes from last month. Do I have a motion on that?
So move. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, it passes unanimously. Move on to item 7. This is an update on Pure Water Monterey, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Lindau.
Good afternoon, Chair Smith, committee members. So Pure Water Monterey, plus or minus a day, this is our 4th year in operation. So again, if you remember back then, in the middle of COVID's kickoff, so Tammy and her staff have also recharged more than 14,000 acre feet since the day. I think we passed that milestone on March 4th. So also huge. With that, have we got more slides up? Let's give you some quick highlights for Pure Water Monterey expansion. Again, the big picture, maybe pause for a moment. Any questions on what's being done out there? This isn't the first time we've seen this slide. Okay, next slide. So what we want to highlight for you.
Hey, Dave, can you hold on a second? Is there a way we can move the
Yes.
pictures of everyone up or consolidate so the slides can be seen? Thank you. Sorry, Dave.
Okay, so again, as explained to the board, not a lot happening construction-wise at the plant itself. Long lead equipment being ordered. Contractor is mobilizing, doing some minor concrete work throughout the site. Moving on to our next slide. But the last week and a half has been a big deal for injection well phase 4. I explained last time that this pipeline, the HDD, horizontally directionally drilled pipeline, is the first step for the contractor because he needs the water to do the deep well drilling. All right. So this 2,800 foot length of pipe, which costs us about 2.1 million, has passed its first major milestone. Okay, and that's the pilot bore. Next slide, please. So this is a specialty subcontractor to SCI. The first thing they do is they drill a pilot bore from one end to the other. Next slide, please. This is where the pilot bore enters. All right, and again, we're looking west at this point. So we're going from uphill to downhill, and we're punching our 20-inch pipe through this hill. All right, next slide. While they're doing the pilot bore, okay, that checks the soil conditions. Is there anything in the way? We did a bunch of soils work along the way, boring 60 feet deep, because that's how deep that pipe will be at a certain point. They're getting ready the 20-inch pipe, which they will then pull through that once they ream out a bigger hole. Next slide, please. This shows how that high density polyethylene pipe is fused at each joint. They basically melt the pipe. So they create that 2,800 feet long piece of pipe in the field while they're drilling that hole. Next slide, please. And here's the punchline. So 2,800 feet downhill, And you can see this is our highest existing deep well. Okay, 2,800 feet away. And on the other side of the hill, if you look closely, this is the pilot boring popping out. So they had such accuracy. They dug this trench. They said, we think it's going to come out here. And sure enough, so this is a bullseye. Again, it's a 60-year-old technology, but this tells us two things. One, that the soils work we did, the design is doable. But more importantly, the specialty subcontractor we have is good at what they're doing. So eventually, we're going to pull that big pipe through from one end to this end. That's it really for the presentation. So if you weren't paying attention, it was actually a huge accomplishment, a high risk part of the project that we've now been able to at least reach that first milestone. With that, maybe open it up to questions.
Any director questions? Director Moore?
So just one, at some point, I believe from your briefing, that pilot bore drill length was 60 feet below the surface.
Correct.
How do they have some kind of sensor that can look down 60
Yeah,
feet to see?
I don't know and every drilling machine is a little bit different, and it's to some degree proprietary how they steer that, because it's not just straight shot, it's up and around. There's some shape and horizontal curves to that. So it's really neat technology.
Yeah.
And it's not considered a short reach from A to B.
2,800 feet? No, it's
But they
definitely
use
not.
this technology for boring under cities. So you could go from one end of Petaluma to the other. You have to do certain turns. You need different pits. That one entry pit that we show you, every time you have a really unique turn, you might need another pit. Ours is fairly straight shot.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Did you guys hit any objects?
No.
No? That's good.
No bodies? No.
No. In fact, it's interesting, the site
UXO.
clearing for the eastern well field has been a lot cleaner. So fewer empty shell casings, almost no shrapnel. It's clearly a lot farther away from where they used to do some of their practice.
Kent, you're probably referencing any unexploded ordinances and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So that was good. And then also,
Leftover.
and no large rocks or anything, but you wouldn't expect any here because that could be a problem.
No buried tanks.
Buried tanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lindau, for that excellent update. And I think you're up next.
Yep.
So
So,
item 8, go
Uh,
ahead.
Agenda item, action item 8 for the committee's consideration might be one of our last new contracts for expansion. It's the SCADA Systems Integrator, SCADA, Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition is basically how Tammy's team monitors and controls all of the equipment spread out from the source water pump stations to the injection wells. Now, each of the individual 2 construction projects we have their own integrator, and we will be holding them to their scope to make sure that their packages are fully integrated in terms of SCADA. But what we learned on the last part of the original part of the program is sometimes things fall into a crack. Sometimes things come up where it's not one guy's responsibility. Common reports. We're in the middle of getting our new permit. Sometimes the regulators say, hey, we want this data set presented to us, delivered to us monthly. So that would be a new SCADA programming effort. And so these guys who did it last time, again, they won via competitive selection process. They know us. We think they're the right guys to have on standby to do this work for us over the next year and a half. So for your consideration, $350,000 for TSI.
All right, Director, questions?
Yeah, just one question. So is this considered a construction contract or a professional consulting
It's all
contract?
services. There's no software or hardware included in this package, and that's how the procurement was run.
So it's
So,
professional services.
Yeah.
So qualifications and competence.
right, we pick based on qualification competence. We
pure
don't pick
quals.
based on how much they bid.
No, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And Chai, real quick, can we check with the public to see if there's any comment on this item?
Don't see any raised hands from the public.
Bring it back to the board for action and further discussion.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, we'll take a voice vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Lindau. Move on to item 9. This will be Jennifer Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, Chairman Smith and members of the committee. I'm Daryl Harris, Utilities and Maintenance Manager for Monterey Water. I'm presenting on behalf of Jennifer Gonzalez. The Moss Landing Pump Station was built in the early 1980s to pump wastewater from the Moss Landing area to the Castroville Pump Station and then to the regional treatment plant. The original design included an underground storage tank to store fuel for the emergency generator. In November 2023, the underground storage tank was removed to meet regulatory requirements. The proposed above-ground storage tank will provide fuel to run the station in the event of an emergency with an extended power outage. A pre-bid meeting was held on January 31st, 2024. 2 bids were received in February, one from GEMS Environmental and one from Air and Loop Systems. The low bid was from GEMS Environmental for $303,529.83. The project was budgeted for $150,000 this fiscal year. Currently, $105,130.16 remains after the removal of the underground storage tank. The remainder will be funded by projects that came in under budget, $25,000, and a budget transfer from field maintenance outside contracts account. Staff asked that the Recycled Water Committee recommend that the board award a construction contract to GEMS Environmental in the amount of $303,529.83 plus a 10% contingency for the CP 347 Moss Landing diesel above ground storage tank project for a total not to exceed amount of $333,882.81 and recommend approval of a budget transfer in the not to exceed amount of $228,882.81. I'm here for any questions you have.
Director, questions? Yep, Director Williams.
What is the workaround costing us, or is there a workaround? We're not operating.
Oh, so right now the existing generator has a belly tank, what we call, and I think it's a 200-gallon belly tank. So it gets us some with that small station there, about a day's runtime, day and a half. But for an extended outage without making repeat trips filling up is why we used to have the underground storage tank, and now we want to install the above ground.
So that's exactly the workaround, is they just keep having to fill it for an extended outage. And a belly tank, you've probably seen them with a generator sitting on top of a piece of steel that boxes the belly tank, generally speaking.
And so it's all the time that we're having staff go out there and manage that. It's a lot of capacity.
Whenever there's power outages, absolutely. So hence the reason on all of our stations having some capacity to fill with diesel, so the run time's longer.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Director Moore.
Could you give us a sense of how big, this is a 500-gallon tank, is that correct?
Yes.
And roughly how big is a 500-gallon tank of diesel? Are we talking the size of this room, or would it fit right here in the?
Yeah, it's probably, I think 8 feet by 4 by 4.
Like
4
a
feet
double-
tall.
It's
Yeah.
a double wall construction, obviously,
Double
for
wall.
above ground. So it's a little bigger than just, if you think of a 500-gallon fish tank, it's much bigger than that because it has double walls, steel and concrete construction probably.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta have a concrete containment in it to handle any spills.
And
of the tank
is it, for example, the extra concrete containment that drives this price up? What's always difficult for us as board members is to go, oh boy, that's a real deal at $303,000 for a 500-gallon tank, or to go, oh my God, they're overcharging us by 10% or 100%. So how do we judge that?
So it's really hard to do that on something like this. And I'll let Daryl get into more of the details, or even Jerry, who does estimates on this. But in addition to the tank, there's the piping and the cabling and the conduits going back and forth, so you know level. So until we look at a breakdown of costs at a more granular level, do you know where the contractor has weighted something? But on something like this, it's more of just the engineer's estimate. Is that a fair statement, you guys?
Yeah, because this will include, like Paul said, the labor to install the concrete, the containment, the piping, electrical associated with it, the sensors, and the price of the double wall tanks.
And a follow-up question. So this tank is set into some kind of concrete box. Are the walls of the concrete box as tall as the tank, or are they
No.
just 6 inches tall? Or
I think for 500 gallons, I think they're probably about 12 inches tall.
so would they hold the entire 500 gallons if the tank leaked?
Regulatory requires
Okay.
secondary.
And then the follow-up question, is this thing going to be roofed?
No,
So I assume that the concrete containment structure would have a way to drain any oil out of it, some sort of valve or exit.
yes, it will have a sump to it. And then we will have a sump pump that we would, because before you release the water, you have to inspect it and make sure that there's no oil or gas in it. And then you can pump it into our drain system.
For rainwater, like you're suggesting.
Right. And how do you handle that rainwater issue? Because obviously it could rain heavily and fill that up, and then you get a leak, and now you've got no place for the fuel because it floats on water.
Yeah, so that's part of the alarm system. So when the sump's full, it will alarm and then let us know that we need to
Go
go
out and
inspect it
check
and
it
turn
and
on.
potentially empty out the water.
Yeah.
We appreciate your keeping our groundwater uncontaminated with fuel, so that's very good. And I'm sure Monterey County Mosquito Abatement District also appreciates your emptying the water out of there after rainstorms. Thank you.
Chad, we'll just real quickly check online for any public comment on the item.
Don't see any raised hands from the public.
And we only have staff in the room, so we will bring it back to the board for discussion and action. Director Rubino.
Did you say that we will be able to see a breakdown of their estimate?
Yeah, I think,
Okay, do you have that? I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
yeah, I don't have it, but we can get that and provide it.
Okay. Yeah, it does seem a little high, but I assumed a lot of the cost is not the tank or the concrete, but it's a lot of the sensors and controls that.
No.
Usually we get a schedule of values submittal. and Once we get that, we can provide out more detail.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Director Williamson, second by Director Moore. Any further discussion? Voice vote, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Daryl and Jerry. And we are now going to have Mr. Valadeo present on item 11 first, I believe,
Correct.
and then item 10.
Good afternoon, Chairman Smith and members of the committee. My name is Jerry Valadale, Associate Engineer. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about the next two items, 10 and 11, but which deals with CP 356 four-door interceptor repair project. And the first one I'll talk about is item number 11. The four-door 42 interceptor is a concrete pressure pipe which conveys wastewater from the Monterey Peninsula to the regional treatment plant. During the CP 312 headworks bar screen diversion project, it was discovered that the bar wrap steel cylinder experienced severe corrosion with thickness and loss of over 80% in some areas. It was determined that the pipe cannot be rehabilitated and a 25-foot section will need to be replaced. Corolla engineers who designed the CP 312 project developed the bid documents to replace the corroded four-door interceptor section. The project went out to bid last year and only one bid was received at 3.65 million. This was much higher than the engineer's estimate at 2.6 million. The bid was rejected by the board at the November 27th board meeting. Staff modified the bid documents to reduce the project costs and advertise the project bid for bid this year with a 5-week bid period. And a mandatory pre-bid meeting and job walkthrough was conducted with 4 potential bidders in attendance. So on February 29th, Monterey One Water received 2 bids. The low bid was $2,048,750 from Mountain Cascade. Now, this project was not anticipated and therefore not budgeted for this fiscal year. However, the replacement will need to be implemented due to the condition of the pipe. $500,000 will come from CP 346 fire pump storage tanks that will not be spent this fiscal year, and the remaining will be from agency's contingency fund. A budget adjustment form is included with the staff report. Now, staff requests that the Recycle Water Committee recommend the board approved a construction contract with Mountain Cascade for the CP 356 four-door interceptor repair project in the amount of $2,048,750 with a 10% contingency for a total not to exceed amount of $2,253,625 and recommend approval of budget transfer in the not to exceed amount of $2,253,625. Now I'll have to answer any questions you have regarding this item.
Director Moore.
So this bid is to replace 25 feet
A section of
Of
pipe going into the
section of
headworks.
pipe. How many feet crossing the former Fort Ord of similar construction pipe do we have?
It's a fairly long force main, so I don't know the exact footage, but it's,
Thousands.
yeah,
And so the issue on this, Tom, is it's where that exact pipe that you're talking about has daylighted. So it has where most force mains are immersed the entire time. So you don't have the air gap and therefore hydrogen sulfide being generated and eating the pipe. The section that he's talking about is right at the headworks, which does have that air water interface continually. So I think that you're going to, if it's bad here, why isn't it bad for those 10,000 feet? That's the reason, is
Right.
the situation where it's in.
yes.
If
That's
that
the only
makes
place where
sense.
it'd be, it's always, it's, the other pipes are, it's submerged.
Right, and
'Cause
it's
this is at the high
daylight,
point.
so then-
Got it. But why does air get in there if it's a force main that's
Well, It's at the
100% full at all
discharge
times?
point, it's at the discharge point of the headwork, so it's basically a gravity right there at the end. It just discharges in, so it's not totally full. So it's like, if it comes up like a 45-degree angle and then another 45 and then goes straight in and just, it's not totally full. It probably has like at least a couple feet of.
So this is an air
40
gap in the entire length of force main from the south boundary of the former Fort Ord all the way up to Marina. Somewhere in there at this headworks is essentially an air gap.
The headworks is at our plant. So it's like the very end of the pipe. So it's
Oh,
not
so
exactly an air gap as one, you're probably thinking of it from a water perspective. Pipe's cruising along, it comes to our headworks, and that's that last 25
Correct.
feet is right
Oh,
there. at the
so
end of
this
the
work
pipe.
is going to be done at our plant site,
is.
not on the
Correct.
former
No.
Fort Ord. Sorry,
Right.
when I read Fort Ord Interceptor, I thought this was somewhere out on
No.
the former Fort Ord.
We just call that the pipeline forward.
And are we going to get, will the new pipe be some other material that this will not be a problem going forward?
It's gonna be fiberglass reinforced polymer mortar pipe. So it's gonna be corrosion resistant.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any further questions? We'll go to the public briefly and see if anyone online would like to comment on this. And point out for the record that the boardroom is still just staff and board members.
I don't see any raised hands from the public.
Okay, and I'll bring
Move approval.
11 back for a vote or for a motion. We got a motion by Director
Second.
Moore, second by Director Habino. Any further discussion? Call for a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we'll ask you, Mr. Valadeo, to do item 10.
Yep, item number 10 is now back to item number 10. This is with the same project CP 356 with this project, construction phase soon to commence. Staff recommends an engineering service or construction contract in the amount of $190,100 with Corollo Engineers to develop the bid documents. Now, the engineering services during construction contract will include development of form documents, submittal review, request for information responses, design clarifications, development, attending construction progress meetings and technical meetings, and developing of as-built drawings. And as mentioned earlier, this project was not budgeted for this fiscal year, but will need to be complete this year. Money will come from Monterey One's Water's contingency fund to fund this engineering services during construction contract. And a budget judgment form is included with the staff report. So the staff requests that the Recycle Water Committee recommend that the board award the engineering services during construction contract to Corollo Engineers for CP 356 Fort Ord Interceptor Repair Project in the not to exceed amount of $190,100 and recommend approval of a budget transfer in the not to exceed amount of $190,100. Now I'll have to answer any questions you have.
Director questions? Take it.
Approval.
All right, we'll just check briefly with the online public.
I don't see any raised hands from the public.
Okay, and again, there's only board members and staff members in the crowd. We have a motion on the floor to approve this recommendation by Director Moore. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Director Williamson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No opposition. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much for Mr. Valadeo.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for taking care of our plant and making sure everything is running smoothly. Appreciate it. Okay, I think we're on to item 12, which is Mr. Harris.
Good afternoon, Chairman Smith again, and board. I'll be presenting the next three items. We'll start with the Salinas Valley Reclamation Project, or SVRP, was constructed in 1998 in partnership with Monterey County Water Resource Agency to treat secondary effluent to tertiary standards. The recycled water is distributed to 12,000 acres of farmland in the Castroville Seawater Intrusion Project. The SVRP electrical distribution system not only powers the SVRP facility, but also supplies power to the chlorination supply building, in which the chlorine also treats the Salinas River Diversion Facility water supply. Electrical system has begun to fail, and one of the two existing transformers have been taken out of service due to corrosion. If the remaining transformer was to fail, it would be catastrophic for the water supply for the CSIP growers. Staff solicited bids for the replacement of both transformers and had two vendors provide bids, Gray Bar Distribution and Wesco Distribution. Wesco was the lowest bid, however, they would not guarantee pricing until equipment delivery, which was 36 to 38 weeks out. Gray Bar, which was slightly higher by 3%, guaranteed the quote provided that the issuance of the purchase order. This is budgeted for fiscal year 23-24 and will be paid for by Marina Coast Water Resource Agency, or Monterey County Water Resource Agency, I'm sorry. Staff asked that the Recycled Water Committee recommend that the board approve the purchase of two 21 kV 1500 kVA pat mounted transformers from Gray Bar Distribution in a not to exceed amount of $384,945,059.59. I'm here to answer any questions you have.
Director, questions? Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item?
Don't see any raised hands.
All right. I will take discussion and action at the board here.
Approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second by Director Williamson, second by Director Urbino. Any further discussion? Call for a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Harris. We'll go ahead and go on to number 13.
Okay, item number 13, Salinas Pump Station was built in 1984 to pump wastewater from the Salinas Valley area to the Monterey One Water Regional Treatment Plant. A condition assessment was conducted in the Salinas Pump Station in 2018, and it was found that the electrical power gear, motor control centers, the MCC switch gear, and et cetera, was beyond its average useful life and should be upgraded. Due to the cost and lead times associated with the electrical equipment, staff determined that in the short term, it would be prudent to install a pump capable of performing an emergency bypass in case there is a catastrophic failure of the electrical equipment. The Salinas Pump Station electrical power gear is included in the capital improvement plan, and this proposed pump will be used in an emergency until that electrical power gear can be funded and constructed. $500,000 was budgeted for the Salinas Pump Station bypass capabilities this fiscal year. A proposed budget adjustment for the remaining monies of $95,033.75 will cover the additional costs. Staff asked that the Recycled Water Committee recommend that the board approve the purchase of a new skid mounted permanent Tier 4 final diesel powered pump, a CD500 from Pack Machine Company, for the Salinas Pump Station bypass capabilities in the not to exceed amount of $595,033.75, and recommend approval of a budget transfer in the amount of $95,033.75. here to answer any questions.
Daryl, would you mind providing the board just order of magnitude? And I apologize for not asking this beforehand, but order of magnitude on the MCC cost for replacement and lead time, I think, which is driving us towards this solution.
Yeah, so for an upgrade to the electrical system at this pump station, this is one of our bigger stations. Like we're upgrading to some of the other stations, Monterey and Seaside. This one here is probably about a 16 to $18 million upgrade project for the electrical gear as well as pumps and everything. So with the age of this equipment, if we have a PG&E failure or our main distribution gear failure, even though we have backup generators, none of the pumps will run. And the flows of this station, which is our largest, we don't have any towable pumps that we could just tow in and do pump rounds like we can at some of the other stations. So that's why it was such a big enough skid mounted pump that we would be able to put there stationary and pipe in with automatic controls. So if none of the other pumps run and the wet well starts to fill, this pump will turn on and prevent a spill to the Salinas River.
Interesting. Director Moore.
So this is the permanent solution, correct?
Band-Aid.
The Band-Aid. What are we going to do with the skid mounted pump when we no longer need the Band-Aid?
It can still be put at the station. It comes in a complete enclosure with its own 500-gallon fuel tank that comes with the skid. It can always be mounted on a towable unit, but it'd still be, even with a new upgrade, I think it would still be a good idea to have at the station.
Well, we can use it at the station, and frankly, in unusual circumstances, we could move it.
Yes.
I mean, hypothetically, like the storms that we had last year and what Salinas was dealing with on the ponds, a pump like this, we could haul it out there to use to either dewater or move water back and forth at a far greater rate than any of our existing diesel pumps.
So there is a potential future use also for this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally self-contained with its own tank and enclosure, and it is on a skid that is movable.
And all its own electrical gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plug it into your local 125 volt, 60 hertz socket, right?
No.
Pretty much.
No, it's diesel power.
He does it.
Oh, okay.
But it can
Thank
be used as emergency backup with the replacement. I mean, because that even though it's a large CIP project, it could have issues going forward as well. Just like the AWPF that blew up that we weren't expecting on a 2-year piece of equipment.
And I assume since it's diesel powered, it meets current air emission standards.
Yes, it'll be a tier 4 final.
And do we know, I know it's hard. Have there been any rumors that somebody's working on tier 5 standards? Which
No, right now, tier 4 final is the latest standards for air pollution.
so it's not likely to become obsolete or illegal to use anytime soon.
No.
Thank you.
Good questions. Any other questions? Dr. Rubino?
So have we had, without this bypass, have we had any major issues where, how do we solve the problem now if that were to happen today? Alleviate the problem.
Well,
Yeah, well, we'll be calling rain for rent out and different contractors who can come and mobilize and set up a pump around. Like I said, the pumps that we currently own are not big enough for this.
So we haven't had a catastrophic failure of the equipment right now, but a lot of what we do is betting on the come. And so we don't know when a lot of our budget items are for repairs of pumps that we don't know are going to break down. So this is being proactive in case we do have a catastrophic failure out there. But the closest thing we've had, it was during the flood, not this last 2 years, but 15 years before when it was an island and there's virtually, we would be pumping down the entire river. So knock on wood, we haven't had the equipment go down of what he's doing this bypass for.
but so Ken, if something were to happen like right now, let's say that MCC just blew, hypothetically. So Salinas is the largest pump station. They're going to be producing, or they're going to be kicking out what, about 8 8 million gallons a day today. During storm times, I've seen it as high as 20 something million. As Daryl and Tammy said, we would obviously get our pumps out there to see what we could do. We'd get rain for rent, but in interim, we'd be spilling until we could contact someone to bring diesel powered pumps out to do a bypass. So that's sort of the fear is in the study that we had, the collection system master plan study from 2018 saying, hey, your stuff is past useful life. And what Daryl and his crews have been saying is we need to get this done. It's such a large project, as you've seen. We're trying to figure out what's the backstop. And as a former mentor used to say, that's why you have a one-way ticket to Mexico in your bottom drawer.
So we would probably divert the flow into that containment area that's right there adjacent to the station. And then get rain for rent, et cetera. So we would all be moving fast on a situation.
Director Moore.
So look, if this happens, contact me. I can get a 10% discount from Home Depot on buckets.
All right, we'll check with the public briefly. I think if we haven't done that yet, I don't think we've done that. I don't see any hands. Bring it back to the board for action.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seems like a good idea to me. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Passes unanimously. And thank you to the staff for keeping on top of these things and being proactive rather than reactive so that we can keep the plant running. I'll go to item 14. And again, Mr. Harris.
Yeah, item number 14. As stated earlier, Monterey One Water operates and maintains the Castroville Seawater Intrusion Project, or CSIP, which is owned and managed by Monterey County Water Resources Agency. The original design of CSIP included 3 booster pump stations to help maintain pressure throughout the system. These booster stations have reduced voltage soft starts, which are utilized as either 100% on or 100% off. It was determined that this method did not protect the pipeline in overpressurization and for a time were left unused. In 2021, a solution was implemented whereby variable frequency drives were installed at the Espinosa booster pump station, which allowed the amount of pressure to be regulated by using a pressure as control point and supplying the needed pressure for the system while protecting the pipe. Malaria Booster Station was built to work in conjunction with Espinosa Booster and currently uses the ineffective reduced voltage soft starts. Therefore, Monterey One would like to install VFDs to supplement line pressure while protecting the pipe. Upon inspection, the existing MCC and switch gear in 1W determined that it needs to be replaced. Per M1W's procurement manual, under general procurement practices, we are allowed to utilize cooperative purchasing to ensure the best use of agency funds. On February 1st, 2022, M1W became a member of Omnia Partner Solutions and Graybar Electric Omnia Partner contract EV2370 provided a quote for a 4-section Square D motor control center with 3 built-in VFDs and a main service switchboard. We also went out and solicited other bids as well for this here outside of Sourcewell, and Graybar Electric was still the lowest bidder. This is budgeted for fiscal year 23-24 and will be paid for by Monterey County Water Resource Agency. Staff asked that the Recycled Water Committee recommend that the board approve the purchase of new switchboard and MCC in the amount of $199,150 from Graybar Electric.
Director Moore.
Since this is being paid for by Monterey County Water Resources Agency, does their board also have to approve this?
They approved their budget, their entire budget, which this is a line item.
Line item in it. Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Director Urbina.
So this over time it should pay for itself pretty quickly, right? In terms of the PG&E savings, electrical savings.
Yes. Yes, it will allow us to run pressure as needed instead of running the pumps at 100% either on or off. We can stage pumps on and control the pressure set point by looking at downstream pressure from the pump station.
Thank you.
So Ken, do you remember a while back, for the last 15, 20 years, they were talking about Espinosa booster and adding VFDs there. And we finally went and did it there about
2021.
3 years ago. Yeah. So this is just something else that'll add more flexibility to the CSIP system, as you know, that we need. So,
Will it be remotely? Could you?
yeah, you should be able.
Yes, it's controlled remotely from SCADA.
Great.
Great. Check with the public really quick. And don't think
Don't
there's
see any raised.
don't see any hands. Okay. We'll bring it back to the board for action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. Call for a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Thanks for all the work on the infrastructure. And now we'll come back to staff reports.
So thank you, Chair Smith. Just a couple brief things. One is, so the item Daryl just had on Salinas Pump Station. We have a $16 million project coming up, he just said, in the future. You know that the Seaside Pump Station and the Monterey Pump Station, I think the combined costs are about 33 million bucks, 35 million bucks. So we're starting to see, actually not starting, we're actually getting a lot of these larger projects done. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. We will be coming back to the board probably in April for a resolution for some bond issuance. And we're trying to refine what the capital project costs look like over the next 10 years to understand how much that's looking at and where we're going. But as you can imagine, with plus or minus $225 million over the next 10 years, that has to be a combination of reserves as well as debt financing. So there will be some significant costs coming at us. Second thing I wanted to bring up is as you well know, we've been working with the county and Monterey County Water Resources Agency to provide an audit on the recycled water fund here at Monterey One Water. And a draft report has been issued. We're going over it, and we're supposed to be meeting with the auditor and Monterey County Water Resources Agency, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then obviously we'll share it with the board and everyone else. Lastly, Mike and I were able to go to the Water Reuse Symposium in Denver this last weekend and week. Water Reuse National. And yeah, I just think it's great in terms of the growth of the symposium, and maybe Mike can talk to it later as well. Historically, it's been about 500 people or so. There were 900 people at this conference. It sold out. They actually had to turn people away. And I think we had at least one presentation that was focused on Pure Water Monterey, and of course, good collaboration with all our peers. And then last but not least, I did want to introduce, I guess you guys have met him, Tyler hadn't. Matt Thompson came on board about 2 weeks ago as our Director of Engineering. He comes to us from the city of Paso Robles, where he was there for like 16 years?
15 years.
15 years. So we're happy to have him on board. And between Matt and Frank, it's great to have the horsepower to lead certain areas within the agency. With that.
Have two things. One is that we fired up SVRP last weekend, so we're providing water there. And I wanted to thank the board for supporting all the monies that you guys approved for these projects, and looking forward to Matt being on board to get a lot of these projects completed. As you guys know, we've ramped up CIP over the 6 years that I've been here because of the monies that you guys have allocated. So really appreciate that. As you know, all of our system is aging, and we're trying to fix it as fast as we can, as fast as the money is passed our way. The next big thing is we have the SRDF, the dam water pumps out. WRA wanted us to get those repaired. We're hoping to get those back in and be able to operate before April 1st. There was some talk that the river was flowing too fast, so we might not be able to start April 1st, but as soon as we can start pulling water from the river, we will. As you know, the growers It's the best quality water that we have and the cheapest. So that's our goal. So thank you for your support.
I'll just piggyback on Paul's comments about the Water Use Association meeting. Just a great way to interact with your peers. And, we get to talk to other industry folks. And so a lot of our staff, don't know about some of those conversations, but, our board needs to know that we're held in high regard within the industry for some of the projects we're doing, the innovations that we've done with Pure Water, but also with CSIP, dating back 26 years now. And so it's easy to lose, that focus on a regular basis. But, now that we're, trying to enter into the energy space, I mean, we're really an innovative utility on a pretty small level when you consider some of the other large players. And so it's just nice to hear that validation from other industry peers. And it's just a great way to represent the agency moving forward. So really thank all our staff for all the hard work you do. You just don't understand how well respected we are. So wanted to let the board know that too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I will attest to that. I've been to conferences and seen the way that our staff is treated and our leaders are treated and unthought of, and it's really a high level. So I completely agree with that. And I had another thought. But I got caught up in that one. So appreciate all the reports. Welcome. Oh, that's what it was. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on board. Sounds like you come with a lot of experience. And Frank, welcome. And look forward to working with you. Anything else, Mr. Shudo? Or
No, Jim, did you have anything? I just wanted to.
Oh yeah, we got to have the lawyer talk at least a minute, right?
Oh, no, the only thing I had, Paul, is to report that Nick's per meeting time average has slipped substantially today. I don't have anything other than that to report.
Thank you.
Any board member comments?
Good work.
Any
Thank you.
comments? All right. Well, that'll do it. Thank you very much, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.